Greetings, everyone. This is Rucker, and I'm here for another constitutional talk. We're going to move in and discuss Federalist IV this morning. But a lot of times we look at things in an historical prism and we think they aren't important today. And Federalist IV is written by Jay, and it's the discussion of union, kind of like the last, like Federalist III was a discussion of whether or not to join the union and why it's important. But today, through the prism of partisanship, we see lots of movement, like say Texas is a movement to secede. You have the same kind of thing in California, sections of Washington, Oregon, all these places think they do better off without the union. They could do it alone better. And I think that Federalist IV really tears into that possibility and why we shouldn't. And it starts for the Independent Journal. Federalist IV by Jay. To the people of the state of New York, my last paper assigned several reasons why the safety of the people would be best secured by union against the danger it may be exposed to by just causes of war given to other nations. And those reasons show that such causes would not only be more rarely given, but would also be more easily accommodated by a national government. That either by the state governments or the proposed little confederacies, but the safety of the people of America against dangers from foreign force depends not only on the forbearing to give just causes of war to other nations, but also on their placing and continuing themselves in such a situation as not to invite hostility or insult. For it need not be observed that there are pretended as well as just causes of war. So let's talk about the pretended causes of war that he's going to get into here. I'll let Jay continue first. Is it too true, however disgraceful it may be to human nature, that nations in general will make war whenever they have a prospect of getting anything by it? Nay, absolute monarchs will often make war when their nations are to get nothing by it, but for the purposes and objects merely personal, such as a thirst for military glory, revenge for political affronts, ambition, or private compacts to aggrandize or support their particular families or partisans. These and a variety of other motives, which affect only the mind of the sovereign, often lead him to engage in wars not sanctified by justice or the voice and interests of his people. But independent of these inducements to war, which are more prevalent in absolute monarchies, but which will deserve our attention, there are others which affect nations as often as kings, and some of them will on estimation be found to grow out of our relative situation and circumstances. Now, I'd like to give an example. Like there are plenty of countries around the world that lay claim or think they lay claim to some islands, a section of land that they once held as a nation. And they tend to think that that piece of land should be with their particular country. And they will fight back and forth over the centuries for that land. And depending who's stronger winds up holding that piece of property. And this is another kind of thing. It's more of a personal thing, and more of a prideful thing of why they want to hold this. Okay, well, I'll get back to Jay. With France and with Britain, we are rivals in the fisheries and can supply their markets cheaper than they can themselves, notwithstanding any efforts to prevent it by bounties on their own or duties on foreign fish. With them and with most European nations, we are rivals in navigation and the carrying trade, and we shall deceive ourselves as we suppose that any of them will rejoice to see it flourish. For as our carrying trade cannot increase without in some degree diminishing theirs, it is more their interest and will be more their policy to restrain than to promote it. In the trade to China and India, we interfere with more than one nation, inasmuch as it enables us to partake in the advantages which they had in a manner monopolized, as we thereby supply ourselves with commodities which used to purchase from them. The extension of our own commerce in our own vessels cannot give pleasure to any nation which possesses territories on or near their continent, because the cheapness and the excellence of our productions, added to the circumstances of vicinity and the enterprise and address of our merchants and navigators, will give us greater share in the advantages which those territories afford. That consists with the wishes or policies of their respective sovereigns. Spain thinks it convenient to shut the Mississippi against us on the one side, and Britain excludes us from the St. Lawrence on the other, nor will either of them permit the other waters which are between them and us to become the means of mutual intercourse and traffic. From these and such like considerations, which might, if consistent with prudence, be more amplified and detailed, it is easy to see that jealousies and uneasiness may gradually slide into the minds and cabinets of other nations, and that we are not to expect that they should regard our advancements in union, in power, and consequence by land and by sea with an eye of indifference and composure. The people of America are aware that inducements to war may arise out of these circumstances, as well as from others not so obvious at present, and that whenever such inducement may find fit time and opportunity for operation, pretenses to color and justify them will not be wanting. Wisely, therefore, do they consider union and a good national government as necessary to put and keep them in such a situation as, instead of inviting war, will tend to repress and discourage it. That situation consists in the best possible state of defense and necessarily depends on the government, the arms, and the resources of the country, as the safety of the whole is the interest of the whole, and cannot be provided for without government, either one or more or many. Let us inquire whether one good government is not, relative to the object in question, more competent than any other given number whatever. One government can collect and avail itself of the talents and expertise of the ablest men, in whatever part of the Union they may be found. It can move on uniform principles of policy. It can harmonize, assimilate, and protect the several parts and members and extend the benefit of its foresight and precautions to each. In the formation of treaties, it will regard the interest of the whole and the particular interest of the parts as connected with that of the whole. It can apply the resources and power of the whole to the defense of any particular part, and that more easily and expeditiously than state governments or separate confederacies can possibly do, for want of concert and unity of system. It can place the militia under one plan of discipline, and by putting their officers in a proper line of subordination to the chief magistrate will, as it were, consolidate them into one corps, and thereby render them more efficient than if divided into 13 or even into 3 or 4 distinct independent companies. Now, what he's arguing for here with the militia is we are stronger as a group than even in 3 or 4 confederacies, which is why we should hold fast to union and why we should keep our union. This is in no small part why we fought a civil war, to keep us a united United States. But I continue. What would the militia of Britain be if the English militia obeyed the government of England, if the Scotch militia obeyed the government of Scotland, and if the Welsh militia obeyed the government of Wales? Suppose an invasion. Would those 3 governments, if they agreed at all, be able with all their respective forces to operate against the enemy so effectually as a single government of Great Britain would? We have heard much of the fleets of Britain, and the time may come, if we are wise, when the fleets of America may engage attention. But if one national government had not so regulated the navigation of Britain as to make it a nursery for seamen, if one national government had not called forth all the national means and materials for forming fleets, their prowess and their thunder would never have been celebrated. Let England have its navigation and fleets. Let Scotland have its navigation and fleets. Let Wales have its navigation and fleets. Let Ireland have its navigations and fleet. Let those 4 of the constituent parts of the British Empire be under 4 independent governments, and it's easy to perceive how soon they would each dwindle in comparative insignificance. And this is because they could even be fighting amongst each other with prejudices and pride of each individual group, rather than the pride of being of one great people. Remember, the sun never set on the British Empire. But if it's all divided, they become less of one great nation and become divided into the many. But let me continue on with J. Apply these facts to our own case. Leave America divided into 13, or if you please, into 3 or 4 independent governments. What armies could they raise and pay? What fleet could they ever hope to have? If one was attacked, would the others fly to its succor? And one was attacked, would others fly to its succor and spend their blood and money in its defense? Would there be no danger of their being flattered into neutrality by its species promises, or seduced by a too great fondness for peace to decline hazarding their tranquility and present safety for the sake of neighbors, of whom perhaps they have been jealous, as whose importance they are content to see diminished? Although such conduct would not be wise, it would nevertheless be natural. The history of the states of Greece and of other countries abounds with such instances, and it is not improbable that what has so often happened would, under similar circumstances, happen again. But admit that they might be willing to help the invaded state or confederacy. How and when and in what proportion shall aids of men and money be afforded? Who shall command the allied armies? And from which of them shall be receive his orders? Who shall settle the terms of peace? And in case of disputes, what unique shall decide between them and compel acquiesce. Various difficulties and inconveniences would be inseparable from such a situation, whereas one government watching over the general and common interest and combining and directing the powers and resources of the whole would be free from all other embarrassments and conduce for more to the safety of the people. But whatever may be our situation, whether firmly united under one national government or split into a number of confederacies, certain it is the foreign nations will know and view it exactly as it is, and they will act toward us accordingly. If they see that our national government is efficient and well administered, our trade prudently regulated, our militia properly organized and disciplined, our resources and finances discreetly managed, our credit reestablished, our people free, contented, and united, they will be much more disposed to cultivate our friendship than provoke our resentment. If, on the other hand, they find us either destitute of an effectual government, each state doing right or wrong as to its rulers may seem convenient, or split into 3 or 4 independent and probable discordant republics or confederacies, one inclining to Britain, another to France, and a third to Spain, and perhaps played off against each other by the 3, what a poor, pitiful figure will America make in their eyes. How liable would she become not only to their contempt, but to their outrage, and how soon would dear broad experience proclaim that when a people or family so divide, it never fails to be against themselves. And he signs it Publius. Now he makes a real good argument about union and why we should all join together and be stronger than the individual pieces. And that is even today the whole argument of divide and conquer. And our politics today, fighting amongst each other, makes us a weaker people. And the argument of secession of one state or another, or a splitting off a whole section of the country because they don't agree with the politics of the other, it all comes down to a dangerous thing. And union is important. It's important to all of us to bind together for a common good. And that's really what Jay is arguing for here, is that we combine together mostly in Federalist IV for the matter of defense. And I think he makes a good point when you have 3 or 4 different confederacies, and one may be loyal to Spain, one to England, another to France, and you're going to actually wind up with different thinking people in each individual group, and eventually you would divide yourselves up and wind up with a whole bunch of different countries rather than one United States. E pluribus unum. That means something. It means strength is best when we are all one. Think about that, folks. Think about what he's arguing here and why we should put our differences aside and work for the betterment of the whole. Work for union. That's what's really important here. The union of the states. We'll catch you next time on the next Constitutional Talk. We'll see you later. Bye for now.